on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Viall Files. I am your host, Nick, and we have a doozy of an episode for you today. Michael, the wonderful, adorable fan favorite from Katie's season, Daddy
and Zaddy,
Michael is here to speak with us about his experience and his life, his loss, his possibility of being the next Bachelor. Thoughts on Katie, Greg, all of the above, Thomas. There's a lot of meat in this episode, so we are excited to bring that conversation to you. I am joined by the wonderful team with Chrissy, Amanda, and Allie. How is everyone doing today?
I'm good. I'm just like, I feel like the universe's standard for men, like the bar for men is in hell. Like I'm over it. I'm
Why?
like, this is why I'm single. I just feel like people.
Just men?
Yeah. I'm just like over it.
Okay. Not to salt in the wound, Allie. I had a great first date this week.
Okay. And I will be heading home. Thanks. Bye.
It was in Venice with this guy who's a private jet pilot, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, I was like, it's such a cool profession. Like he's done a lot of traveling, lived abroad a little bit. And so the first part of the date, like, you know, classic dinner, etc. And then we went to a dive bar across the street. And while we're at this dive bar, like we're having a great time, few IPAs deep, and he kisses me. And then these two people from like across the bar start like yelling at us, like screaming at us, going, use protection, use a condom, all this stuff.
So they were trying to be funny, or they're trying to be
They're
dicks?
trying to be funny. It's just like two like drunk ass 46-year-olds.
Gotcha.
Like it's a Monday night. They're screaming at the bar. First time I give them, you know, a good thumbs up as you suggest. They're still yelling. So then the Boston comes out a little bit and I'm like, hey, you guys have a lot to say. Why don't you join us? And they kind of like look me in the eye and I'm like, no, come on, like join us. So they sit at our table. We end up chatting with them for a while. It's a crazy situation. They're here for one of theirs birthday. I assume they're a couple. Turns out they're best friends, but there's a lot of sexual tension there. But ended up having this like crazy night with this guy whose birthday it was on a Monday, and good first date.
All right. How did are you going to see this person again?
Yeah, he's texting a lot. I told him at the end of the date, I was like, I don't really want to text. Like, I just feel like I have a lot. I don't know. I don't like texting people. Like I like going on dates with people. I like hanging out, that kind of thing. But like, I'm not trying to text you and hear about your day all the time. I think that's kind of a waste of time. He's been texting a lot.
Many women would disagree with you. I'm getting he's a bad texter.
I would
Meanwhile,
disagree.
You like a good texter.
I love a good texter, but I feel like Amanda's like dancing in a rainstorm and I'm in the middle of the desert. So I'll just be in my corner.
Well, maybe Amanda's on something, because when you try to text with a guy, what happens?
I don't have anyone to text other than you.
You were just telling me a story about a guy you were texting.
Oh, well, that was technically Snapchat messages, but yeah.
Oh, Allie.
It wasn't my idea.
What did he say?
He said, I knew you wanted to be my little slut. And that's where it ended. So.
And you had never met him in person?
Nope, never. And it was the first day we'd even like messaged back and forth.
It's a weird move.
I will say, and it's again.
No justification.
I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying next time someone asks to Snapchat message with you, that's when you know they're probably trying to say some freaky shit.
Also, well, didn't you guys kind of agreed to like do some sexting a little bit?
We didn't like sex. Like it wasn't really like anything like, it wasn't anything like vivid or anything like that. There was like nothing specific about like physicality or anything.
Yeah. It's not. Yeah. I'm glad you stopped talking.
Like, I'm just confused. Like, I was like, finally, like, you know what? This is going to be fine. He's like kind of a douche, but it's fine. He's hot. We'll just have like some casual fun. And then this card gets whipped out. I'm like, my Lord. Oh,
I think the key to online dating is talking about the stuff you want to talk about with people. Like I think you have to go into online dating. Like the reason I actively enjoy online dating is because I say whatever I want to say, like very take it or leave it. Like sometimes I'll ask very deep questions. Sometimes I'll ask just like very bizarre specific questions.
You don't seem to be generally worried about what they have to say in a texting.
I think people think that there's like a script you're supposed to defer to. Like you're supposed to ask like certain kinds of questions, but like those are the questions that everyone's asking. And like,
do you like being my little?
But I would also argue that I wasn't like, I feel like I was being myself too. Like he was giving me like certain like lines and I was like, what is your success rate of that working? Because that is absolutely ridiculous. Like I was just kind of being like, I felt like I was calling him out on his BS, and then that's still
You'd probably be surprised.
Little slut entered the chat.
Well, the dating continues to be hard.
Amen.
It's never going to be easy. Hey, if you're tuning in to Hear the Medical episode, as always, don't forget to send in your questions at asknick@castmedia.com for our Ask Nick episodes. If you like relationship and dating stories, people's tragedies, their successes, we learn a lot about love and relationships on Mondays. Be sure to tune in to that. Subscribe, rate us 5 stars, tell your friends. We appreciate listening. Now let's get to Michael. Michael, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
It's really good to be here.
Yeah, nice.
Try to get
this-
that mic into that face.
Get all up in here, huh?
How have you been?
Been good. It's been crazy, after, the show and, just getting back to like normal life. I mean, everything's kind of retreated back to where it was post-show. I always feel like there's certain like stages of this. There's like getting ready for the show, then actually being on it. And then there's waiting for it to be aired and then living week by week. And now it's like, it's just relaxing.
Okay, so you feel like you're getting back to normal.
I do.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah,
We have a lot to talk about, I feel like.
I think we do.
Ever since you left the show, then you were on Men Tell All, and that was kind of the last we've really heard from you.
Yeah.
And yet a lot of questions have been asked about a lot of things going on. Things have happened on the show that I think people would love your take on, from the time that you left to Katie and Blake getting engaged. Let's get to know you a little bit.
Yeah.
About how did you end up on the show?
So, life is crazy. It just kind of works in mysterious ways here. And I never applied for the show, wasn't even nominated. I actually had a producer, or actually it was a casting director, reach out to me on social media. And it was crazy.
They're sliding in the DMs now.
They were, everywhere. And, at first it was like, hey, would you like to be on a show? And I'm like, what show is this? I think because maybe, my age, maybe like Jeopardy or something. And then they're like, no, it's the Bachelorette. And the first thing I thought of was like, oh my God, did my mom nominate me? This is like crazy embarrassing. And I really didn't know what to do. But, it was kind of one of those things where, in 2019, lost Laura. In 2020, had COVID. So it just felt like the right time to, take a risk, kind of gamble on yourself and do something crazy.
What were your biggest reservations going into the show?
Name it. Like, when you're deciding whether or not to get on this, all you can see is what can go wrong, because you don't know what can go right. You don't know like the relationships that could form between, myself and Katie, or even my experience with the guys in the show, like living with all these guys, for an extended period of time is totally odd. I haven't done that since, college. Mm-hmm. And, it was just one of those things that I never really thought about doing it. So I wasn't really prepared or didn't know how to navigate the whole thing. So the fact that it was foreign too was kind of scary. But, sometimes you just have to roll the dice.
How much did you anticipate having to, or wanting to, or just, knowing it's a dating show, knowing it's about love? Before I get into that question, how familiar were you with the premise of the show?
Yeah, so this was actually Laura's favorite show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, everybody knows this who's been in like a long relationship, like boyfriend or girlfriend, husband and wife, they have their favorite shows. And like, usually, if you don't want to watch it, you just go into the other room. And I was doing that for a while when she was watching The Bachelor. But then it was like, we're getting off work and we're spending the whole night in different rooms watching, God knows what. And so the first season I actually watched was Juan Pablo's season, which personally, is my favorite still because it was just such a train wreck and fantastic. It's great. It's great. Like it always goes down as like one of the like craziest ones or whatever, but like I just loved it. Like the disorder was really crazy entertaining. And then, before I even knew it, I started developing like opinions about people, about like situations. I'm like, oh my God, I'm locked into this. But, then I was casually in it, but really didn't know too much about it outside of watching a handful of like seasons there, here and there.
Wow. So then while you're going through this, you've been reached out by the show, you're considering it, knowing that it was your wife's favorite show. What was that like thought process like? I mean, in terms of like, did it feel like extra meta being like, I'm about to go on this? Did you guys ever even joke about, even though you're married, so I know a lot of married couples be like, oh my, you would do so well in the show, or vice versa.
Yeah. I mean, she used to say that stuff all the time, like when we were watching it, because I would give her my hot takes on what these guys should be doing or what they could be doing. And she'd be like, you'd be so good on this. Like, you should totally do it. We could get divorced and you could just like totally come back and you could, we'll get back together and just totally play the system. Sure. I'm like, geez, you're a con artist, Laura. Like, my God, these are people's feelings. You're heartless. But it was just kind of a fun game. And I think after losing somebody, you're always looking for signs. And a lot of those signs aren't really clear. But this one was like crazy clear. And I think if I didn't do it, I would have thought about it, the what if, like forever. And the what ifs always like burn me. They keep me up at night. So I'd rather make a mistake than do nothing and have to face that consequence.
Yeah. Did you, so obviously you were familiar with the show and obviously the show, a lot of times especially in these one-on-one dates, people will talk about tragedy that they've endured.
Yeah.
Most people are fortunate enough not to have faced death that you had to face with Laura. Is that something, obviously you must have anticipated that coming up, and how prepared were you to talk about it? And did you anticipate going as deep as you did, which was, I mean, really inspiring, I think, to a lot of people, and just kind of your approach to it all. I think a lot of people watching it saw someone who brought a lot of perspective and calmness, especially in a world where we get riled up real quickly, real easily, sometimes for things that don't really matter or often don't matter or a day later. Were you anticipating that? Was that a goal of yours to hopefully be a symbol of overcoming adversity and tragedy, or is it something that just kind of happened organically?
I would say it definitely happened organically. I mean, you never know how people are going to respond to one thing or the other. I mean, I know that there'd be a group of people that'd be rooting me on, because of the loss, because, I was in a relationship for, basically 16 years. But then there's the other side of it where, people criticize. How could you do this to your son? He's not ready to move on. Like he never had like feelings or connections with Katie. It's like, you don't know what you're going to feel until you're actually in it and doing that work. And so I didn't have some sort of plan of, being a symbol of like hope or inspiration or anything like that. I still don't even think I am. But, I'm glad that people were able to hear about, my journey, learn more about Laura, because, you're always worried about how time works and how people forget. And, one of the things that I always wanted to make sure was that people knew who she was too. So, it was a nice way to talk about her. And I mean, quite frankly, if someone's asking me like who I am, how can I not go into depth about your past and your history? It's half of it at least.
Did you have any or a lot of conversations with Laura's family when going on this show?
We had a bunch of conversations, and it was really difficult because they're amazing people. They actually just bought a condo in Akron. So yeah, they're from Detroit. And so they live like 2 blocks away now. And I mean, Laura was an only kid. And so now James, my son, only grandchild. And, you know, I want to always make sure that they have like that connection forever. So I'm super excited about that. They're great. But we did have a conversation about, you know, going on the show. And I knew it wasn't going to be easy to have to watch this. I mean, it's really strange. There's so many different layers to this. I mean, like people rooting for me, I mean, close friends and family rooting for me to, you know, find love, find a way to be functional, to try to find a way to move on and move forward with everything that's happened. But at the same time, there's always that awkwardness of, for the first time, seeing me with somebody else, like even getting intimate with somebody else. It's odd.
If anyone's out there who just needs to talk to someone, they're stressed out about life, anxiety, money problems, people problems, girlfriend problems, boyfriend problems, doesn't matter. Taking care of your mental health is super important, and we're huge advocates of it on the show. It's as important, if not more important, than your physical health, your diet, working out. If our minds aren't right, we can't really be right with any other part in our lives. And BetterHelp is helping us to making that easier. BetterHelp is committed to helping you get therapy that you need, with aligning you with mental health professionals. That's right. You can do it from the comfort of your home. It's never been easier to start doing therapy. I'm a huge advocate of it. Do it myself. And again, you can do it right from your phone, your tablet, your computer. You just go on there, do a quick assessment. They align you with a mental health care professional that fits your needs. And if you don't think it's a fit after maybe 1 or 2 sessions, you can always switch. The point is getting your mental health right and taking the time to do it. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change counselors if needed. It's more affordable than traditional online counseling, and financial aid is available. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. Visit betterhelp.com/viallfiles. That's VIALLFILES. And that's BetterHelp, HELP, and join the over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. In fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they are recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states. Again, if you've ever thought about getting therapy, you could be talking to your new therapist in less than 48 hours. That's right. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Viall File listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/VIALLFILES. Shavings make a pile. That's right. Noom. Start meeting your wellness goals today with Noom. Just a few minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, can help make big changes in your life. Noom's cognitive behavioral approach focuses on the why instead of the what to help you change your relationship with food. Everybody's journey looks different. Noom customizes a program for you based on your personal goals. So whether that could be losing weight, could be gaining weight, maybe gaining muscle mass, you name it, everyone's goals are different, and Noom is helping everyone get there. 80% of Noom users finish the program, and over 60% have stuck with their goals for at least a year. That's right. It's not a diet. No, it's a lifestyle. With Noom, taking care of your health is empowering instead of stress reducing. No need to fear ruining the whole program with one day off. Noom will help you get back on track. All you need is 10 minutes a day. Noom fits into your life in your terms. No grueling early mornings or huge chunks out of your day. Noom for me, just listen, as I get older, I just really want to maintain what I'm doing. You know, I just want to keep it going. And Noom is helping me do that because I love food. I have a sweet tooth, and you know, the thing about Noom is it helps you not have to like eliminate any of that. It's just having things in moderation and keeps you track of of your goals, and can't say enough about it. That's right. Start building better habits for healthier long-term results. Sign up for your trial at noom.com/VIALL. That's NOOM.com/VIALL.
You know, they did, say, we want you to be happy if you think that this is going to lead to that totally. And they appreciated me asking, but it's not without its pain, like without a doubt. It's just naturally ingrained in the decision.
Yeah. How much dating did you do between the time Laura passed and going on the show?
Yeah. So Laura passed in January 23rd, 2019. And I remember like sitting in my room kind of wondering like, how am I even going to begin this? Well, one, and I think a lot of people who've lost somebody understand this, you develop these like odd habits. Like, for example, like you share a bed with, I share a bed with Laura forever, and you have her side and my side. And then after she passed, that side's just empty, and it's really strange. And so I didn't read this or anything, but I started laying across my bed. So it like my feet were on her side. I'm not sure why I gave her my feet, but I laid across the whole thing almost to like change habit or something. And I did that for, like 8 months. It's super odd. But then I started thinking about, what are these different phases going to be like? Because I need to start moving and understanding what this like mountain ahead of me looks like for James and I. And I started going on some dates about, 3 or 4 months after she passed, not with the intent of finding somebody. I went on about 10 dates.
Kind of getting the gears going almost?
Well, more or less like, you have all of these different like sensory experiences. You have the first time you're driving to go meet somebody. You feel like you're having an affair. Like the first time somebody, they smell different or they touch you, like just nice friendly touch. Like it's weird. It's not their touch. Like inside jokes no longer land. Like all of these different habits that you've become accustomed to over the years, they no longer apply. And so I was trying to gauge all of those different things. And I went on 10, one date only, different people. And I was very upfront about, my situation. I mean, back at home, Laura's kind of inspirational journey, what she did, it was very public. So a lot of people knew about it even before I went on the date with them. So it wasn't like hiding intentions or anything like that.
Listening to you talk about that, it's interesting because, with Laura passing, it's very obviously finite and it's definitive. And yet when you were telling that story, I wonder if a lot of people listening, even myself, even when people deal with breakups, like let's say they're dating for 5 or 6 years and you break up and that person's still alive and well.
Yeah.
But just that, especially if you live together or you had that routine and that thought, of like that you break up and you go to bed and they're not there anymore.
Yeah.
And that kind of adjustment period and what that's like, or even like inside jokes or feeling like you try, even if you are the breaker up or were broken up with, there's a level of, especially if you have hope of getting back together. It's kind of fascinating dealing with loss or just trying to move on from a time in your life where you were really comfortable or really enjoyed all the things that we invest in relationships and build, and those, like you said, those inside jokes.
Yeah.
And it's obviously if you deal with death, it's incredibly heartbreaking. And then, if it's just heartbreak, there's a level of loss too.
Yeah. And there's even, you're so right on this. And there's even a level of like just tasks around the house, like, whether it's grocery shopping or just things that were designated for one way or the other that are totally different. And, even raising a single son, I have no idea why these things exist. I can't even comment on that. But Laura would typically know all the dates, like for school, like where you have to bring in, Valentine's Day, like mailboxes, and there's birthday treats and, certain things. Like she always championed like those things. And, it was a total learning experience where I had to completely shift and start adopting those because, no one else is going to do it. And, my kid can't be like, the dirty, stinky kid in class. So it's like, I gotta man up here, guys.
Yeah.
I figure this stuff out on the fly.
Thinking about like the comparison between like a heartbreak or a breakup and then obviously dealing with death, when people break up, they go through those stages, right?
Yeah.
But I got to move on. This person doesn't want to be with me, or I don't want to be with it, whatever, right? There's and you want to get to that place of indifference so that you're just like, hey, we're not together anymore.
Right.
And then you make that, you make the list of the things that you didn't like so you can focus on, but with Laura, your wife who you loved and would want to be married to if cancer didn't happen.
Yeah.
How does someone in your position, honor obviously the memory of your wife? And it must make it so much harder to move on because you have to change some of those routines and let go of some of those things to a certain degree.
Yeah.
While simultaneously honoring her memory, making sure that your son, still remembers his mom. Like,
Yeah.
What was that thought process like? How do you go about doing it? Because just think about it out loud, it seems like an impossible task.
It didn't feel this way early on, but it's something I understand better now without being an expert on this whatsoever, just my own personal experience. Like, you have to be easy on yourself. It doesn't have to be perfect. You have to find a way to move forward. You don't move on, and you don't just turn the page as if it's didn't happen or if it's no longer there. Like, when you spend that amount of time with somebody, they're a part of you. I mean, they walk with you. And I remember feeling that pressure early on when Laura passed. Like, what's 2 years look like, 5 years, 10 years? Like, how much distance is going to be created where, we no longer remember her that like the way that she should be. And that was crazy scary for me because that's like a big, important part in my life. And so I did create a nonprofit that honors her, puts her at the forefront, called the L4 Project. And that's kind of my hope, to do some good, kind of do this tragedy to triumph type thing. And hopefully it's something that, if it is successful, it's something that my son can actually, champion one day and continue to keep that connection with his mom. Because you just never know how that whole thing works. Grief is really, really difficult. It's not linear. It has its peaks and valleys. The second you think you're past a certain phase, it bites you. And you're like, oh my God, I just went back like a year. I'm back here again. And so it's this constant balancing act that, what I will say is it's never boring, but it's a challenge. And, I'm lucky enough because I have a lot of family and friends that have been there since like day one, supporting us. And without them, I mean, I wouldn't even be functional. So it's not at all me getting there. I mean, that's a piece of it, but it's also me being able to get there because I had an awesome community kind of taking care of me and watching my back.
Sometimes you just want cereal at 9:30 at night and you don't want to get off the couch because you can't drive, to be totally candid with you. And that's where DoorDash comes in. That's right. So whether it's late night cereal, your favorite restaurant down the street, pizza, Chinese food, sushi, you name it, DoorDash has so many great options available to you to get the food that you want and need. Cravings, that's right. It could be late night ice cream, whatever. With over 300,000 partners, you can support your neighborhood's go-to or choose from your favorite national restaurants like Popeyes, Chipotle, or the Cheesecake Factory. Also, it's a great way to keep people working. I know it's a pandemic. It's a great way to support your local restaurants, and they have contactless delivery, obviously, for make sure we're staying safe and not spreading, anything really. So yeah, think of DoorDash next time you want some food and you feel like being lazy, which I do all the time. For our limited time, our listeners get 25% off and 0 delivery fees on their first order of $15 or more when you download the DoorDash app and enter code VIALL. That's 25% off up to $10 value and 0 delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter code VIALL. Don't forget, that's code VIALL for 25% off your first order with DoorDash. Subject to change, terms apply. All right, I want to pivot slightly and get into the show a little bit.
Let's do it.
It's a nice little transition though, leading up to this, and
you're a good interviewer, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
I
very
try my
insightful.
Thanks. Now you're making me nervous.
Yeah.
So we've just talked so much, obviously, about this process of overcoming or continuing to overcome, obviously, the loss of your wife.
Yeah.
And most people who go on the show are very fortunate to have to experience what you've had to experience. But going on the show, as you know, as well, is a whole nother kind of psychological process.
Yeah.
And then when you're in this bubble, and then when you leave, there's this kind of decompression of like what just happened. And like you said, there's these stages.
Yeah.
Right. It's different for everyone. How was it for you, and how much did you reflect back, on all the things you went through with your wife to, kind of overcome the challenges that are involved in kind of decompressing and getting back to normal from the show, which everyone who goes on it, especially if they're on it for a lengthy period of time. I mean, if you're on it for a couple weeks, then it's
right.
not quite the same, but you were in it for a long time. You were emotionally invested. You cared about Katie.
Yeah.
So for that, for people who experience that, what was that like for you? And again, how much do you feel like that perspective you've had with the life that you've, led and had to endure helped?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. And I think, anyone that has ever gone through this process or this show, it's really hard talking to other people about the show because they just don't understand. It's just this foreign thing. And that's what kind of makes it, intriguing or unique. It's this crazy, bonding, I don't know, trauma bonding, fraternity, sorority setup, maybe a little bit of both. But I kept reminding myself, even during the most difficult times, like where the show is really testing me, missing James is testing me, balancing, my past and my present on the show is playing mind games. I kept reminding myself that this is not the hardest thing I've done, at all. At all. And so kind of that's when experience kind of sets in, when life experience settles in. And, if I would have been on this show, when I was 25, I would not have been able to do it. Not at all. You did?
No, I think about that too.
When were you on? When
I was 33.
Okay,
time.
yeah.
So, and we, Andy, she was, as a Bachelorette, she was 27, 28. So, I think the overall cast was in their late 20s or early 30s. But yeah, I since the show has evolved, and you've had, like Peter, you had a much younger cast of women, and even some of the men on the seasons, I think to myself, how fortunate I feel like I was to have lived a life, but was in corporate America, had a job, faced some real adversity, some heartbreak, and that all, I couldn't imagine. If I went on as a 24, 25-year-old.
Yeah, I would have bombed. It just wouldn't have been the type of experience that it is for me today. I was able to pull a lot of meaning and a lot of things that, 10 years down the road, I'll look back and be very thankful for, because I was taking those types of things in, where if I was younger, they would have just gone over my head.
Yeah.
So I do think, there's that part where having older people, on the show, and I'm not even sure what defines older, but I was the old guy and I liked it.
Yeah. Did you find yourself counseling or being kind of the mentor in the house, or were you trying not to step on any toes, or did you find some of the guys were migrating towards you as they learned about you and what you've been through as someone who, was kind of helping them get through certain difficult emotional times?
Yeah. What I'll say first is, sure, I'm older, had more life experience than these guys did, but this cast, these guys, I'm not even kidding. They were very emotionally aware, and they were deeper than I think most people recognize. Everybody.
I think overall it seemed like a solid group.
Solid cast.
And kind of just I think that generally came across to Bachelor Nation, that we were dealing as a collective group. Some quality men who were in touch with their feelings, weren't as, other seasons are more bro-y, kind of alpha kind of, and I thought this group of men, reflected that.
My roommate was Josh out of Miami, and he's 25.
Josh out of Miami.
Yeah, he didn't get as much airtime as I wish he would have, because
Which one? What do you look like?
incredible human being.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's 25. He was my roommate. And I remember thinking, like, when I was 25, I wasn't like half the man he is. And I was like, I can't wait for you to add another like 10 years. Because you're just, this guy has crazy depth, life experience, all of those things. And it's like when you're sharing a room with somebody, you're like, God. And, he's just a great human being. And so I guess to get back to your question, like, was I the mentor or things like that? I think what I did provide a lot of people was perspective when things felt like they were getting out of control or too intense or chaotic or something like that, to pull themselves away, kind of take a breather, understand like what's happening. And I remember in New Mexico at these COVID seasons, my God, you can't do anything. And so we're all just hanging out. And probably for like a 2 or 3 week span, I was just like manning the grill, like totally leaning into like this old
That's
dude.
what I would have totally done.
Yeah, it's a Midwestern thing, And I was making, all of the producers and all the handlers food, everybody on the show, like, and I'd make them their
Very therapeutic.
dinner.
I would have loved. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that I could do, because I love to cook, and I'd be like, all right, have fun on your date with Katie. Be back before midnight.
I'll have some hot dogs ready for.
Like, how is tonight? Anything you want to talk about? Yeah, is everything okay?
So you ended up sending yourself home. Did you anticipate that might be a possibility going into the show, given obviously with your son and the challenges that you were going to face? Obviously, you got to FaceTime your son on a regular basis.
Yeah, not as often as I wish I would have, not as often as I wanted to, I should say, because, we were like 3 hours behind, and the opening to actually FaceTime him, it changes. It's not like 1 o'clock every day, be there. So, and then you had a producer kind of over your shoulder, which, really makes for a real intimate conversation with your son.
So it's a challenge.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a challenge. We were able to like connect, but I didn't have any expectations going on to the show. I didn't know how far I'd make it. I didn't know if I would actually develop feelings for Katie. And I told Katie, probably more than she probably ever wanted to hear, it was like, if I'm not feeling this, like, I'm totally leaving. But then, like, our one-on-one date happened. And that was when everything changed for me, where I actually got to know her as a person. And it's not always what people say, but you can see it in their eyes too, Like, you can hear it in their tone. They're not rehearsing lines that they think look good on camera or going to be great sound bits. Like, you can feel it. And I remember being like, oh, like, there it is. Like, that's the reason I was here. And actually, I didn't have a group date or anything for like the first like 10 days. I just went straight to one-on-one right after like 12 days of COVID, quarantine.
Quarantine,
yeah, not having COVID.
Yeah. Just want to make that clear.
Yes.
So after you left, and the time, the internet was abuzz by some of the comments you left on Katie's Instagram. What do you regret more, not having a beard while filming the show, or flirting with Katie on Instagram now knowing that she was engaged?
Correct. Yeah, it's a bad look. Not the beard. The beard's a great look. Yeah, total, looking back.
It's totally fine. We're messing with you.
No. I want to clear the air here, because it's important to know, one, what I did. I'm not like looking back, if I could have never done that, please, never would have done it. The other side of it was, I really didn't know if she was engaged. And quite frankly, a lot of her like social media activity
suggested maybe she wasn't.
100%.
Yeah.
And so, I'm not sure if that's typical of leads to be that active on social or whatever, but as someone that's just kind of waiting around and remembering what it felt like when I left, and like that connection, I couldn't help but think that it was still carrying over. But then you watch the season and you realize, yeah, she's developing amazing relationships with other people outside of me. You know, you're like, oh my God, Leah, like, how stupid was I? And I do think that her and Blake are like an awesome match. And I wasn't able to see that when I was on the show. And so, you know, after I did my creepy old man like comment,
what did you even say?
I said, can't say what I want to. And it was a picture, but that even makes it worse. Because it's a little too vague.
It was very open-ended.
Yeah.
And it was like a thirst trap photo of Katie.
Yeah. I mean, she was looking beautiful, and I said that, and like people are like, "Oh my God, does this guy know how to use the internet?" And
I really don't think it was that bad.
I mean, I
also, in your defense, like you said, like you did it. Like it's a common story, right? And a common story that's the idea of the show. That especially the 5 or 6 guys who really are forming connections with the lead truly feel like their connection is the strongest,
Absolutely.
Right? Because in a normal world, how could you imagine having strong feelings for someone and them have the ability to act and do with other people that they're doing with you? It's fucked up, right?
And
so it's human nature for you to think that.
Yes, and I did contact like Blake and totally apologized after I saw that they were together. I was like, dude, I'm so sorry. And Blake's awesome.
And he seems like a chill
He's
guy.
awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, he's secure.
Yeah.
Like he knows, he's like, dude, no problem.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, cool. But I just want to let you know, like, I wasn't trying to step on toes. Like, you know, weird time.
Sure.
Chalk it up to a weird time.
And like you said, I mean, Katie's social media activity, whether she was trying to get people guessing or was it deliberate?
Red herrings everywhere.
Hanging out with other guys from the franchise he'd sent home. You're just like, maybe she's just like, this is a free agent we're looking at here.
And you can't talk to them. Like there's that was always the frustrating part too. Like being on the show, you're like, I got a question and I got to like wait multiple days to even be able to possibly have the opportunity. And then the show ends and you're like, wait, I still have questions, but you just have to wait and watch everything unfold.
A lot happened on the show after you left. Most notably, the breakup with Greg.
Yeah.
And that was very triggering for Bachelor Nation. It was allegedly triggering for Katie, as we found out after the final rose.
Yeah.
Well, what are your thoughts on Greg? What were your thoughts on the fight? And let's just start with what we saw as far as the breakup. What was your perspective knowing Katie and knowing Greg?
Greg probably he got off to such a fast start. I mean, first impression rose, then, first one-on-one. And actually, he got a second one-on-one. I mean, he got the most time. I mean, throughout the whole entire thing, he really didn't have to question where he stood. He was kind of the front runner in the house. That also comes with a lot of weight to start that early and then have to see all of these guys start to develop real connections. I would say watching that fight or that breakup unfold, one, emotionally charged. I mean, anybody that questions the authenticity of the show, I mean, sure, there's editing stuff that they just have to do to make it, but that's what real breakups sometimes look like. They're messy, they're dirty. And I couldn't help when I was watching it. Like, you ever see Full Metal Jacket?
I have, yeah.
When he's like, what we have here is a failure to communicate. Yeah. And that is exactly what was going on. And some of that is based on the structure of the show and what you can and cannot do and just those limitations. But also, I think when they first got together, I mean, that was coming off me leaving too. So I do think Katie was in a very difficult place. And, people are human. Like, they deserve some grace. Like, we make mistakes. I mean, across the board. I mean, I know I have. I think Greg's an amazing person. I think it was this crazy intersection where he finally opened up and finally spilled everything to Katie. And when it wasn't reciprocated for one reason or the other, that really hurt him. And, when you get hurt, they always say hurt people hurt people.
And we had Greg on, and he acknowledged that he was guilty of, whether it was like a conscious thought in the moment, but reflecting back, that he probably wanted her to feel the pain he was feeling.
Yeah. I mean, however the subconscious works, I'm not even sure. I think, I guess that's the whole point of the subconscious. It felt very real. It felt like something like that could easily happen, in the real world off a set.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know that, Katie is certainly somebody that, is charged. She's somebody that's like emotional. And that's also one of the biggest pros of her.
Katie accused Greg of acting. Do you think Greg was acting?
If you look at me on the show, I have no idea what's going on, like the whole time. I mean, zero. So I wasn't even thinking about that. Watching it and knowing Greg, I would say I don't believe he was acting. I mean, I think if he was, I think he could have had, I don't know, a better departure. Like, if you were actually skilled at this, why would you choose this route?
Yeah.
I think there's better alternatives to how it ended. I mean, I know that some of the backlash that he got was, very, very severe. And if he had this master plan, I don't think he would have chosen that route whatsoever. I don't know who would.
What did you think of how Katie approached AFR with Greg?
Yeah. Again, like, for people that are questioning, like, are these emotions really running high? They are. And I guess I was not surprised she came out there and handed it to him. I think she was waiting for that interaction for a long time, and she was stewing. And while you're offset, you're reading all of these things on the web and whatever. And so, personally for me, I wish she would have, focused more in on how happy she is, because I do think her and Blake have something like special. And I think, looking back on it, whether or not she's right or wrong, but I do think it may have taken something away from the moment that they could have shared for, after the final rose kind of deal. So, I haven't spoken to her about, how she's feeling about it. But, everything will be all right.
Yeah. Katie wanted an apology from Greg with how he handled his anger towards her.
Did he give it to her? I don't even remember.
At AFR, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It didn't come naturally, obviously it sounds like she was triggered by his, he was prompted with the question, do you regret anything? And he was like, no, it's probably, like I said, I saw it as, it was a bad look for sure.
Yeah.
He explained it, and I understand his point of view, where he's just like, yeah, everything happens for a reason. I'm not with Katie. Blake is. I'm happy for them. Obviously, given how things played out, you can see how that's not great. And then, they're out there. Greg offered his apology.
Quick question. Do you think things actually happen for a reason?
No.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
That's a totally
yeah,
thing people say.
I'm not like I don't believe
especially
that
someone from your position. What the fuck does that mean? Like Laura's supposed to have passed away.
Things happen for a reason. Like people are always like, yeah, if this didn't happen, then this wouldn't have happened. It's like, no, that's just an event happening and you making a decision.
Yeah.
But we don't have to get all existential and
shit happens,
free will and
we
all
deal
that.
with it. Yeah.
But yeah, like I don't believe it's just this random walk.
Do you think Katie should apologize to Greg for?
Are you
how
kidding
she
me? You're gonna ask me that?
Yeah.
I that's up.
Do you think that would be the nice thing to do?
That's up to them. I'm not touching that. Not touching it. No, I'm not touching it. It's not yes. It's not no. It's nothing.
Okay.
You get nothing from me on that one.
And you like Blake and Katie. You rooting for him? Not rooting. We're all rooting for him. How do you think it's gonna play out?
I think they actually have something crazy special. I mean, no joke. And it was actually nice seeing it too. Because, I mean, you know, from being the lead, it's exhausting. I mean, you're supposed to be everything to everybody. I mean, I think you didn't give a shit a lot of times, which was good when you were doing it. Like you knew who you were, whether or not that's age or everything else, which I think helped you during your journey. But it's not without, you know, your bumps and your bruises. And at the end of this, you just want to be happy. And it's emotionally draining and everything. So when I'm watching them interact, it's like, oh yeah, like I can see it. And I'm really kind of irritated with people saying that like Blake and Katie got together because of default. I think that's insanely wrong. And like, as much as I wish, you know, things would have possibly been different, I mean, everything happens for a reason, right? Like, I'm really excited for them, and he was by no means default, and I think people need to just scrub that from the conversation.
I agree. I mean, like we talked about it. I think Katie was always going to pick Blake.
So do I.
Yeah.
Like, looking back on it now, I mean, it didn't feel that way going through it, but yeah, I mean, they, in hindsight, looking at it from, you know, 10,000 feet, it totally makes sense.
Speaking of The Bachelor, a lot of people, I think everyone in this room, were hoping you would be our next Bachelor.
Thank you.
Are you the next Bachelor? Ooh, yeah, let's start there.
So I get this question a lot, believe it or not, and I typically have to give the same answer, which is they approached me. There have been discussions, and no decisions have been made.
What are reservations you would have of being the next Bachelor?
So I had reservations, like I said before, being a contestant. Those are even heightened when you're the lead. Obviously, there's, you know, a lot of like shiny things that come with the lead, but sometimes like not everything that shimmers is gold here. And I have to think about, just because of my life and the things I actually care about, my son, you know, my like lifestyle, like what do I want after this? Am I ready to introduce my son to random people that he doesn't know? Maybe. I don't know. But those are all just complicated things.
If the show, I mean, we know the show approached you, but let's say it was a serious, something you were on the verge of considering, it would have to be a different type of season.
100%.
Right? They would have to accommodate your specific needs. Personally, I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
And we're talking about some large organizations who run this franchise. What would be those? How would that have to look for you to be the next Bachelor?
Yeah, I mean, obviously being away from James, as you saw, it's too difficult for me to bear, and I wouldn't want to like replicate the past. And you know, one thing I'll say real quick, and I've got so many opinions on this. One thing I'll give Katie crazy props on is, no matter when anybody got home, how many roses they had, how far they made it, consensus as a whole is that Katie made everybody feel like they were the only person in the room. That is a crazy skill, especially when like your heart or your mind is with somebody else. I mean, you're human, you have preference. And so I remember thinking, would I be able to like do that if James wasn't there, or if like, you know, I'm thinking of something else. And, you know, if I was the Bachelor, 100% James would be there. And I don't believe that, I mean, they've made accommodations to people in the past with that, you know, Jason Mesnick and Maynard.
Emily,
yeah. But also, yeah, I mean, I'm 37, dude.
So
you like not looking to like date around and do all that. Like, casting is totally different, you know, and you know, location is different, and not only just finding the person that you want to be with because you feel that like connection, but how do your lives intersect? You know, what does it look like after the show? You know, do you have a career? Do you want to be somewhere else? Like I'm in Ohio and I love it. And so there's all of these different things. Are you, if I was the Bachelor, are you pulling heavy from the Midwest? You know, like how is this whole thing happening? It's just a different level of collaborative effort across like all the disciplines in the show that would have to be working together to, you know, make sure that, you know, they're giving me somebody or a group of people that actually want this, which I think is totally possible. But it's just a shift, as you know.
It's possible, but the show would have to shift that. I don't know
Yeah.
if the show is historically the show is casting for TV first and love second.
Yeah.
And then truthfully, they don't need you to be compatible with 30 people.
Right.
They want you to be compatible with 4.
Yeah.
And then you
Like
decide.
on your season, did you feel like you knew your 4 early?
Yeah, Raven. I didn't really notice Raven until like week 3.
Yeah.
But once I had a one-on-one with her, I was like, top 4.
Yeah.
I had a top 3, and that was kind of different than everyone else.
Yeah.
And I knew, Rachel for sure.
Yeah.
And she got my first impression rose, and then Vanessa was always my front runner.
Right.
And that's usually how it goes. And then and someone might have a top 4 or top 5 or top 6, but it's usually not much more than that.
Yeah.
In terms of like people that are, they meet night 1, and you're thinking, oh, this could be, it. So to your point, the show could cast like of the 30 people, 15 people from the Midwest, but the 3 of your favorites are from like Hawaii,
right,
and Montreal,
right? Yeah, yeah.
But people, Vanessa moved to LA.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm saying, Michael, is if you have reservations on being the Bachelor, what questions do you have for me so that I can maybe convince you to consider it? Because I think the franchise needs someone like you to be their next Bachelor, who I think is a little older, who's experienced some real life experiences, not necessarily the tragedy you faced with Laura, but we've gotten younger Bachelors the past couple seasons. People, Peter, nice guy, lives at home, and we saw a guy who couldn't decide. Matt James had never really been in love. He kind of struggled with, his choices.
And I feel like Matt's situation was difficult too, because he
he
wasn't even on the show. Before.
Matt's was difficult on so many levels.
Every level.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about just the fact of like life experiences, and the show historically has, I was an outlier, right?
Yeah.
And I think the way the show is being viewed now, there's a heightened expectation of men in general in society, and we want I want the show to cast a guy like yourself who has higher expectations of himself, because I'm sure you've made your dating mistakes. I mean, obviously you're with Laura the whole time, but like you said, you weren't the same man you are now.
Correct.
You probably had been toxic at times in relationships. Even I'm sure you and Laura, you could probably look back.
Yeah,
and think
nothing's perfect
and stuff like that. So I'd like to see a season where you bring all these life experiences into these dating conversations that, quite frankly, are just going to be different with you than they're going to be, let's say, with someone like Greg.
Yeah. So
what do you need? Like, what's the one thing holding you back more than anything?
I think for me, I'm always battling this thing where it's like, what's best for me, and then also, or what do I want as an individual versus what is best for my family. Like, you would think a lot of times they totally align, but they don't always. And there's a part of me that I'm thinking, is this like unorthodox route what I want James to like look at and be like, oh, that's how you find a wife. You go on ABC. It's all unorthodox, and love is love too. Like I've done the full circle there. I think putting life on hold is difficult. I'm working on some like crazy awesome projects. I mean, outside of the nonprofit that would totally be put on hold for this. And I know that it's worth it when you're looking at investment and long term for yourself. But would I be able to do kind of what Katie did and emotionally make myself available to that amount of people and give them the attention that they need?
You might not have to, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you could debate, for example, I think that's a great skill. Ben Higgins had that skill too,
Yeah.
right?
Ben's awesome.
I don't know if I was good at that. I broke up with like a lot of the women on dates, but for me, it was just more, I didn't want to, I was a 2-time runner-up who felt led on often.
That's what
in
gets
that
you on
world.
Rushmore, buddy.
Yeah. But so for me, at the risk of not making everyone feel like I was, that the every morning rose with them and sat
Right.
with them, I was okay with some women knowing that it was never going to happen.
Right. Which I think is fair too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what
So,
you want anyways.
I think
in
that's a great
relationship.
skill
Honesty,
that Katie
yeah.
had, and definitely in the moment makes everyone feel. And then honestly, it makes for great TV.
Yeah.
because everyone is more chances of people being like, oh, I think I'm the one.
Yeah, right.
But I don't know if that's necessarily required for you to be the Bachelor or even be a good Bachelor.
Yeah, I think you're probably right on that. And I mean, I often overthink things, and sometimes the simplicity of it is your answer. And I gotta tell you this. So, when the conversations with producers about being the Bachelor started, I had so many questions about whether or not to do it. I mean, and all of that. And then I actually spoke with James. I was getting a call at 7:00, and I was like, James, Daddy's got to jump on a call at 7. And he's like, what's it about? I was like, well, that show Daddy was on, they're considering me to be on it again. And he's like, well, what's that show about? And I was like, well, it's about finding Daddy a girlfriend. And I remember talking to him, and he said, would I be able to come with you this time? And I was like, oh, of course. If they wanted me back there, I'd never leave you. You would totally come with me, do the whole thing. And then, he's like, what's wrong, Daddy? And I remember I told him, I was like, well, Daddy's having a hard time, still misses your mom a bunch, all of those things. James comes back and says, well, if you found a girlfriend, would she live with us? And I was like, well, she would if you wanted her to, bud. And I was like, would I be able to help choose that girlfriend? And I'm like, yeah, you would totally be able to choose that girlfriend. And I was like, James, what are you looking for in a girl? And he gave the most misogynistic answer. He's like, well, she's got to clean and cook. And I'm like, oh God, James, come on. He's like, I mean, I did agree with one of them, which was, she has to be able to read.
Okay,
so I was like, that's,
this is a core competency we want in our partners.
Yeah. Color within the lines is big for him. And then, I was just like, I just don't know, what to do. I'm struggling with, a lot of these things. And he just basically said, don't worry, Dad, everybody needs somebody. And this was 5 minutes before my call. And I was just like, oh my God, here I am trying to project everything onto my son, everything that I'm feeling. And he put it just so beautifully as a 5-year-old, how simple it actually is. Almost everything in life is actually a lot simpler than people make it out to be. And here I am, giving that advice while still simultaneously not being able to take it. But wow. I understand the irony there. But it was a really deep conversation for, a 5-year-old to have. And, I think he wants to get back to normal. He sees his friends have a mother and a father, and he knows that it's different. We talk about grief all the time. We talk about who his, mom, was and continues to be, and all of those things. I wrote a little children's book for him, that's just one copy that we read. But yeah, it's complicated, and it's not,
If it's not going to be you, other names that have been thrown around, Greg.
Yeah.
Andrew a little bit. I know there were speculation that Greg was the choice or whatever, and that seems to have died down a little bit. Do you think, if it's not you, do you think Greg would be a good bachelor? What would his strengths be? What would his weaknesses be?
I mean, the internet thinks Greg is hot as shit. So aesthetically, he's obviously killing that.
He seems like an attractive person through Zoom.
Yeah, right. I know. Oh, that's funny. I think Greg, he's very kind of in touch, with, his emotions. I think he's somebody that, based on his family life and, he's somebody that's been through obstacles. And I think that's vital. I mean, like, I could never be with anybody that doesn't have scars, like, at all.
I love that. I always say we're damaged, not broken.
I love it. I mean, if you're talking to somebody and they're like, life is all just rainbows, that's not being optimistic. If you don't have
scary.
that real testing moment where things aren't rainbows,
Sure.
like, that's just being naive. And then it's when you actually have difficulties and you still feel optimistic, still feel hopeful, like that's been tested. I think Greg does have an element of that. I think Andrew definitely does. I mean, the guys on our show, they all came with, some deep stories where they were all tested. And I mean, I know I'm long answers for your quick questions.
It's a podcast, man. That's
Yeah,
why we're here.
I know.
I've never been given a short answer in my life.
I know. I'm long-winded here. So you can't get those sound bites from me. But I think both of them would be good, and they'd offer different things. Andrew's funny as hell. So his would be very, like, entertaining and, like, lively, high energy, I think. I think Greg's would be, I mean, we saw how he did it with Kate. I mean, prior to the fight, but, like, intimate, like, all of that.
Greg mentioned that he acknowledged he has some work to do on himself, that he maybe realized some kind of healing he hasn't fully completed.
Yeah.
Do you think he would be capable of being the Bachelor, finding love, while simultaneously following through with what he says he needs to work on?
Well, I mean, I'd be hypocritical to say no for that, because I was doing the same thing on the show. I mean, I was healing from grief, and I mean, who the hell goes on this show for mental health? I mean, it's like, why? But there is a mental health element, like when you are forced into interviews, like discussing your past, running through things where normally life, it's very therapeutic. You're like, can we just do some interviews real quick? Because my mind's a mess. And I do think you can find some answers by going on the show and taking a break from life. So I wouldn't draw a hard line there and say no or yes. It really would depend on how he utilized that time and that opportunity if he were to do it.
If it's not you, do you have a preference on who you think it should be between Greg and Andrew?
Not really. I mean, I'm close with both those guys. I talked to, I think Greg like last week, was texting with Andrew in Chicago, yesterday. And I don't know. I think the good part here is that, like, there are a lot of eligible people. They're not, whoever they choose, they're going to be good people that offer something different. It just really depends on what type of season producers feel like they want to have.
One final question about the show, and I'm just dying to get your perspective on before we get into a little bit more about you. Thomas has been a point of discussion, especially now in Paradise. And it's something that I've personally been fascinated by, because I didn't get to meet you when I hosted that day, but Thomas was one of the guys on the date, and
I heard all about it.
Immediately I was just like, this guy's just full of shit, you know? And yet the narrative and everything that happened with Thomas after I met him seems to be so outrageous. What is your take on Thomas? Like, it seems clearly he's a bit of a bullshitter and a little corny. He's tall. He's incredibly good looking. Is he the narcissistic trash bag human being that Aaron, Trey, and James and some of the other guys say, or is he just another young man who might be a giant but has some work to do on himself? Like, what is your read on this guy?
Yeah. Thomas was a difficult one to read. Like when you walk in there night one, you're like eyeing people up. You're like, the guy in the cat suit, he's going to be cool. Thomas, like, he could be a problem.
Sure.
I actually thought Christian was going to be a dick, and he became one of the coolest dudes on the show.
Boston,
Boston guy, yep.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, he was wearing like a green velvet suit, and I'm like, oh my God, like, you're in trouble here with me. But with like Thomas, and everyone was wearing capris, by the way. Like, who is
like young men now feel like I love a slim skinny jean, but pantsuits have turned into capris.
I remember thinking, and I mean, we're roughly the same age here. Like, we would have gotten our ass kicked for something like that back in the day. Like, not a chance.
What are you doing, bro?
Yeah, I know. You're wearing socks. Yuck. To get back to Thomas, I think with him, I think he has a tendency to fall into like corporate speak.
Yeah.
When you're on like those teleconferences and you don't know what the hell people are saying, but it sounds good because they're using like the jargon. I think he believes some of the things that he says and thinks that they're insightful. But I mean, I think watching it back, there's a handful of times it's like, what are you talking about?
He's clearly disingenuous to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean, it could just simply mean someone who's not confident in himself. Sometimes I think we have a hard time looking, like you look at someone like Thomas and you think, I mean, this guy could do literally whatever he wants. He's
one of the biggest human beings I've ever been around.
And yet anyone can have insecurities. To me, so being disingenuous could mean incredibly insecure, and he could easily just be incredibly insecure. I mean, I don't know. It's been fascinating because like I picked up on the same thing you picked up when I first saw him, but I'm not at the same time willing to label someone and diagnose them and define them as when I don't know Thomas.
Yeah.
I met him for like 20 minutes.
I would say this because there was a couple times where Thomas, he was like ostracized from the whole house, and I'm just like the old guy at the bar or the grill, just like, what's going on, guys?
Yeah.
And Thomas came up to me and he's like, what do you think's going on? Like, this is happening. But I was like, you really just need to quit teaching people shit. Like, stop like trying to mansplain everything to everybody. And just listen to people, like get to know them. He was always trying to create like a solution. And post-show, he actually reminded me that I said that to him. And I've gotten to know him post-show. And he's a great dude. Like, I mean, he's a really nice guy. He's got his things he's got to work on. Just like, I mean, shit, I do too. But it's just, that's the interesting part is who you are on the show and who you are off the show, because it does mess with you.
Yeah. And it can be a catalyst for change if you want it to be.
Yes.
Right. Unfortunately, I think it can hurt more people than it helps, but that really comes down to the individual.
Absolutely.
On what do they want to make of this experience and what are their priorities? Is it to reflect and see what you can work on, or is it to get everyone to like you?
Yes.
And it's usually one of the, if it's the former, you have a shot. If it's the latter, you're in trouble.
Yeah, and I remember talking to Thomas too about this. I was like, if you're going to bulldoze people, bulldoze them. If you're going to be everyone's friend, be everyone's friend. You cannot do both simultaneously, and that's where he's getting like hung up. Like, he had his one route and method of how he wanted to pursue Katie, but then after that was done, he had this whole other buddy route, and it was like, that's one of the benefits of being on the show too. You're being filmed. 24/7. You're mic'd up 24/7. You can't hide. Like, your true character comes out, and in so many ways, that's actually very helpful for finding your person too, because people can hide more in real world offset than they could onset.
What's something you've learned about yourself recently, whether it's through the show or after the show, or maybe it has nothing to do with the show, but is there anything about yourself that you've had I didn't really realize about this?
I mean, I would say not a big fan of social media, like, really don't like doing that as much as, sometimes we have to. I am happy that we got like, in my inbox, there's tons of amazing stories of people, grievers, caregivers, stuff like that, single parents. That does feel like a full-time job. Something I learned about myself is that, I think it's capable to actually build a future here. I mean, I'm not joking. There's like, people always see the end result and they don't see the minute by minute, like day struggle. And there was a long time there where, you know, I've just felt numb and I felt like it was going to be literally impossible to find somebody to raise James with. And I'll take this to my grave. I felt that hope when I was on the show. And that surprised me too. I didn't know I was capable of even like being able to open myself up to the prospects of it. But I mean, that's a good surprise.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I thankfully did not have to deal with tragedy like you had to, but as someone who was dating older in my life,
Yeah.
we talk a lot about this a lot, but you know, it's a fine line between kind of an innocence
Yeah.
and naiveness, which can be really great, and having perspective, which can also be great, but it brings in cynicism.
Yeah.
And the show for me was a catalyst for feeling like a kid again and falling in love. And because outside the show, I'm too pragmatic for my own good sometimes.
Getting your own way a little
yeah,
bit. Yeah.
So
I can relate to that.
I totally get what you're saying. What's something that in relationships, and I don't mean necessarily just romantic, you know, friendships, because you know you were with Laura obviously for a big chunk of your adult life, but what's something that in relationships you put up with in the past with how people communicated to you or treated towards you that you now realize is more of a non-negotiable, that you are in tune with, that you think is important for you to prioritize avoiding in relationships going forward?
So that's a great question. One, I don't think somebody has to know who they are. I mean, that's like baseline. That doesn't get you any more points, but that, like, for me, that's just par for the course. Like, if you are coming in and you don't know your foundation, you don't have to have like the self-enlightenment type of scenario, but you have to know who you are. And then there is the responsibility of both partners in a relationship that have to constantly feed and fill that confidence so that it's a safe place for people to be able to be themselves and not have to become something or do something where, you know, I think this will make him happy. I think this will make her want me more. And then everyone's keeping score. Like, that idea I think is very present in a lot of relationships and also incredibly toxic. So, you know, that loyalty element, passion is huge. Purpose is huge for me. Like, don't talk about materials and people. Like, talk about ideas, talk about concepts, talk about things that are like lasting and larger than, you know, just this or that. And, you know, I don't like the materialistic like things. I mean, those things go away. You know, it's like, what's the everlasting stuff, the bigger piece. You know, some people haven't spent the time exploring that or going through that investigation to figure out, you know, what it is that really connects them to, you know, their partner and the world around them.
You might have already answered it with that last question, but what's advice you would give 21-year-old Michael when it came to maybe anything, but specifically love?
Man, I think I drank too much that year. I'm trying to remember who
22,
the hell I was.
you know.
Yeah, I think you're gonna have to go to like 30.
Younger.
I would say you find really the intimacy and the meaning through the struggle. Don't avoid the struggle. That's actually like the greatest opportunity for connection to happen is during those times. And I mean, over Laura and my 16-year relationship, littered with tons of struggles. I mean, as it would. That's how life works. But then the cancer diagnosis, I mean, that's a massive obstacle. And I found we grew closer in a way that I never thought possible during the most difficult times. And some of that is clarity. Some of that is like nothing else matters but this, that simplification, you know, and don't run away from like the obstacles, embrace them and look at them as opportunities to grow with someone that you care about.
Do you worry at all whenever you find love, whether you're the Bachelor or not? You know, one thing I saw on the internet, or I think you and Katie talked about it, was living up to the memory of your wife.
Right.
Is that even something that you worry about, or you feel like your next great love is gonna have to worry about? What's that like?
I mean, it's a great question. It's my responsibility to make sure that they feel that like the love and the relationship is entirely unique. Mm-hmm. That falls on me, but also that goes back to that person being confident in who they are, like understanding that this is something that comes as a package with me. Like it's all a part of it. And I honestly don't see myself comparing. And it goes back to kind of what you're saying too about like being back on the playground type of deal, like finding a spark again, like having something brand new. Like that's like great. And there's tons of things that, you know, like Laura didn't like the same music I liked, you know, like she liked like oldies and Motown. And, you know, there was never something we bonded over. Like,
what music do you like? Who doesn't like oldies and
Well,
Motown?
I like it, but it's not like on loop.
You're like, oh, this was fun, but man.
Yeah, right. Let's get the party
She's like, it's
going.
Flashback Friday.
Yeah. Let's get out the Four Tops again. Thanks, hon. But like, that's a cool, you know, thing that I'll be able to bond with somebody about that's totally unique. I don't see myself comparing, like, at all. But I know that fear is real. And I know that weight is going to be carried by whoever decides to jump into this circus.
What's the worst date you've ever been on?
So this was probably like 3. So let's see. Remember I told you about like the 10 dates?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I think maybe like the 4th one. Found this girl on like Hinge or something. And, you know, she, from every angle, you know, she looked like she had her stuff together, you know, worked at a hospital, like very smart, you know, all of that. I end up going to this date, and I'm not going to talk about her name, but the name that she had and who she introduced her as, like I saw like her hospital ID and it was a totally different name. And so first I'm like, okay, like what's that? Like, why is it? And she's like, oh yeah, that's the name, you know, my mom gave me, but I hate it and I don't want to do that anymore. Then she starts to tell me,
which is like, okay, I'll buy that.
Fine.
Yeah.
Fine.
You're like, okay.
But then like she spends like the next like 2 hours, and I'm being like really nice, talking about like how it's kind of sad too, but I don't know if it's real because she didn't even tell me her name. Was that like how like her mom used to have like, they used to have like Munchausen syndrome. You know, when you keep your kid sick.
Yeah.
Like she was telling me this whole story about that. And here I am in my head thinking like I just lost my wife. Like I'm totally grieving. This story is like, 1, I don't know if it's true. 2, if it is, it's so sad. And like, I got a babysitter for James. I was just trying to have a night out. Like, you know, get some appetizers, you know, like just hang out. And then became this whole like therapy session. And it was
like a cry for help.
It was frightening. And I was like, okay, like, Chuck, please. She's like, will I ever see you again? I'm like, you know, everything happens for a reason.
Sure does. You've been great. Before we let you go, we like to play a fun game with our guests.
Yeah.
It's called Do You Know Me?
Okay.
You down to play?
Down to play.
Real simple. I'm going to ask you some questions. Does Michael does this? Have Michael ever done that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes or no questions are fine.
Sure.
Anecdotal stories are welcomed but not expected.
Thank you.
Do you know me with Michael Allio?
Perfect.
Is Michael a morning person?
I'm a night person.
That makes so much sense because he's a dad.
That's right.
You have to do
Mornings
all the
are
stuff during the day.
straight
And once the kids go
struggle.
to bed, that's when you have a life.
You know, like I stay up late.
Really?
Like I stay
Yeah.
up till maybe 2:30 in the morning every night. And it's literally like
Why?
once I get my son down, I'm like crawling. I'm so tired. And then he gets down and I'm like, I've got so much time for myself. I can do whatever I want.
Is that something you've like as a dad you've done, or were you always like a night?
I was
person?
always a night person, but like the idea of just this like freedom that happens
Yeah.
every night where you can just do what you want to do. Like, and usually it's not like I'm like doing this
You
amazing
turn off
stuff.
the kid TV.
Yeah, I'm like binge watching Netflix and like eating way too late. But yeah, night person.
Does Michael have their read receipts turned on in their messages? But you're a Samsung guy,
Uh-huh.
aren't you?
Which I do want to talk about real quick.
Yeah, because I
Because
text
people
you.
hate me for this. And
It's so yeah. No,
The
it's
green bubbles.
it was just like
Group chat.
Yes.
You ruin group chats, Michael.
I was like coming into this
Do-
interview
you
with
have-
so much
you
high
have to
expectations,
understand-
and I was just like, ew.
you have to understand how much I hate group chats. And that's one of the reasons why I don't get
That-
included
I,
on them.
I do hate group chats, and that I would switch to Samsung just to be off of group chats.
People will like text if I need to be on something, they'll text me individually
Yeah.
about it. And I love that like filtering element like by itself, that I'm not just going to be thrown on here. And then people who aren't doing anything during their day when I'm running around are just having these side conversations. So yeah, big ups to Samsung and Android. Holler at your boy.
Has Michael ever popped someone else's pimple? Are you a pimple
Yeah.
popper?
Well, I mean,
it's,
not
it's
like-
usually one of the two.
Not
you
full
know?
time, but yeah.
Not full time.
Yeah, it's not on my resume, but yeah, I mean, every gross thing you could imagine, it's kind of come my way.
Can Michael name 3 Britney Spears songs?
Toxic. Is that this Slave for you?
I'm a slave for you.
Yeah, and One More Time. Hit me, baby. One more time.
Is it one more time? Is it called one more time? Hit me, babe.
It's called Hit Me One More Time.
Hit me. Yes.
Can you name 3 Taylor Swift songs?
No.
You're not even try.
No.
Come now, Michael.
I'm not joking.
Give us throw a effort.
I would totally
There's
really,
not one. Can you
I-
name one?
I really don't listen to her at all.
But it's just like on the radio.
But I don't listen to the radio.
Oh no.
But he knows Britney, which I applaud.
Yeah, I mean, come on now.
Amazing.
This is going to get some serious blowback, worse than the Katie Africa thing.
Can you name 4 countries in Africa?
Yeah. Zimbabwe.
Amanda picked that out. I just want to,
Zimbabwe,
which is also
Mozambique.
totally fine.
Yeah.
But like,
Okay, to be fair, I thought she was gonna do it. I wasn't trying to make it like a gotcha thing. I thought she was gonna be able to do it.
it's not our bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want me to do this?
Yeah, please.
Zimbabwe, Mozambique, South Africa, Congo, Ivory Coast, Nambia. Let's see.
You're going for like the non-basic ones.
Yeah.
Sudan.
Do you really wanted to upstage your ex-girlfriend, didn't you?
And he missed, like he did. Like
Maybe
Amanda
a
said, he
little.
missed the easy ones like Kenya, Ethiopia.
Yeah, right, right.
Like everyone knows.
I can't believe that ever became a thing.
This Taylor Swift thing's about to be a thing. But it's
Yeah.
but
Can you
it's-
imagine?
Yeah.
Michael
Yeah.
gets canceled because he
Oh
can't.
my
name-
God,
Because he
the
doesn't have Taylor
outrage.
Swift.
I'm sorry. I mean, for anybody that's going to throw shade on this, which I already imagine will happen.
Just say shake it up.
Oh, yeah. Shake It Up is also my favorite.
Welcome to New York.
Yeah. Yeah. They actually just told me that over my
Oh,
headphones.
shake it off. Shake it off. Not shake
Oh,
it off.
Shake It Off.
Yeah, way to go, Chrissy.
Shit.
There you go.
Good luck booking
Thanks
Taylor.
a lot. This is an ambush.
I have my own.
Has Michael ever bought something off eBay?
Oh, yeah. I bought my golf clubs off eBay.
Have you ever gotten scammed?
I don't know if they're authentic golf clubs, but they sold them to me at a good price. Usually what I do when I'm like finding new clubs, I'll go to like Golf Galaxy or something, try one, and then wait a year, then go on eBay and just get like 1 year used, and it's like a third of the price. So,
Would Michael ever pose nude for a magazine?
no, I don't think the world wants to see that. I mean, you guys saw me in that. Like,
Have you ever sent a nude?
That sling, what?
Have you ever sent a nude?
No,
Ever?
nope. Have you?
Yeah, people I've dated.
Oh. They ever surface?
They're my faces in it.
Oh.
It's not something I made a
Just
habit of.
watermark your nudes.
Watermark-
Okay,
water-
that's
watermark
good
it
to
is.
know. These are all new things I gotta figure out.
We got you.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. I know who to come to.
Do you have a go-to karaoke song?
Yeah, it's probably Big Papa,
Here you go.
Notorious B.I.G. Yeah. I can I can rattle that one off. No.
Has Michael ever faked an orgasm?
I mean, typically we don't have to,
Harder.
but sometimes when you drink too much, I think it's more or less like, it's more like compassionate or sympathy for the whole. When you're like, this just has to end. Like,
I
she's
think
not having fun.
Maybe
Like,
a more
it's not.
appropriate question
Yeah.
would be, have you ever thought and or called out a partner for potentially faking an orgasm with you?
100%. You can totally tell.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's pretty obvious. You guys aren't the best actresses. I mean, let me tell you. Not fooling anybody. But sometimes
Have I told the the one for sure for me was as soon as we started having sex, immediately it was like, I'm coming, and I'm like, no, you're what?
Impossible.
It's not
Impossible.
There was
Like
barely any
putting a tea kettle
foreplay.
on the stove and it immediately starts whistling. And you're like,
Yeah,
hold
right.
on a second.
Right. Something's out of whack in the universe here.
Come
Like,
on.
what TV show is on in 2 minutes that you need to get back to?
Give me a chance to try, like.
And she's like, The Bachelor's on.
Yeah, right. That's right.
I was like, you watch too much porn.
Yeah, right. Desensitized.
Have you ever fainted?
Yeah. Like a concert venue. Overheated, I think it was like a Lollapalooza in Chicago or something. It's always like the hottest day. And yeah.
Have you ever been suspended or fired?
Never been fired. I've been suspended from school.
You have.
Yeah.
What'd you do?
I mean, drinking. Like, this is high school.
I drank a lot in high school, huh?
Yeah, I got off to a fast start. And now, like, by the time I got to college, I'm kind of tired. But yeah, got suspended there. Got suspended for one time at college for getting in a fight.
Got in a fight?
Yeah. Yeah.
You
I was
been in a lot of
actually-
fights?
No.
Did you win?
What was it about?
So I was actually dating this girl, and she was from Chicago, and we were leaving like the bar together. And there were 3 guys that kind of came up to us, and one of the guys, he went to high school with her in Chicago. So he knew her, and he didn't like the idea that she's dating me or something. And then there were like these 2 other guys that didn't even go to the school. So I end up dropping her off at like her dorm, and I was in another dorm. I go back, and like 3 of them are like waiting for me. Like, it was just kind of like that fight or flight moment. This is like on camera, like right in like the commons area.
Yeah.
And I just didn't even think about it. So yeah, I got a good couple on the first one, and the other guys just kind of jetted. Thank God, because
Good
if they
for
would've
you.
stood-
What
if
a
they-
moment.
Michael.
if they would have stood their ground, I would have gotten stomped. And then that guy actually, he transferred to Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Did you get that on tape? Because
I'm sure the security videos have
God,
it.
I would have wanted that moment.
Roll the clip, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Watch
know.
that back, but this is where Daddy took down
Yeah, right?
3 dudes.
No, I'm definitely not a fighter, but I mean, there's some times where it's like, you can't be, you tried everything, and it just has to happen sometimes.
Do you like it that many women in Bachelor Nation are referring to you as Daddy?
It's a little bit odd. It's strange. Zaddy is something that gets
What's
thrown
that?
around. You don't know what Zaddy is?
No.
I just learned this too. I think it doesn't even have to be. I mean, we'll ask the younger girls here, because I think it's. Do you guys know what that is?
The younger girls. What are you trying to say?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a newer term
Trying to
that
say
wasn't
you're-
I
in
feel
our
like-
lexicon.
Yeah, I
growing
went
up.
from like damn daddy to like zam zaddy, and I
Yeah.
can't exactly explain why,
And-
but it's just a vibe thing.
Yeah. I think I don't even think you have to be like have a child.
No,
Either it's-
certainly not.
No, I
Yeah.
don't-
I think it's because at first I thought
Are
it was
you
like
into that?
having
Dating someone?
having
No.
a child.
No.
It says the definition.
being called daddy or zaddy by someone you're dating.
No, but with the right person, maybe. I'm leaving the door open here.
Once.
The definition of zaddy is great.
What?
It's a sexually attractive man, especially an older one who is fashionable or charismatic.
Yeah.
Well, how about that?
Do you find yourself to be a
Get
sexual
it,
person?
Michael.
Yeah, I totally am. I mean, how can you not be?
A lot of people aren't sexual.
Yeah. No, I'm totally affectionate. Totally like. I mean, it's essential to have a good relationship. Like you got to be out there. I don't think I'm fashionable though. Like I will say that. Like,
Nice.
oh, thanks.
Like Riley, have you been watching Paradise?
I haven't been catching up on as much as I should. How's it going?
It's wildly entertaining.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've been rooting for some of my guys.
Riley, there's a gentleman.
Yeah, I know Riley, yeah.
His move was he's a chin grabber, as he explained, and I'm not, but it works for him. Do you have a go-to makeup move, like on a first date or a kiss, or how do you sweep the ladies off their feet? Like if you were going to be the Bachelor, what could we expect to see a lot of when it comes to Michael's embrace?
Yeah, I don't know. What would be my move? I don't know. I'd have to get like a survey monkey out there and try to collect some hard
Just
data.
go up to them and be like, "I'm a zaddy."
Yeah. I don't know. I'd probably say sometimes I'll bite a lip.
Okay.
That's a good move.
A nice easy one, gentle one, not like hold on to it and stretch it out like a fruit roll up or something. Like you gotta let go, buddy. Let the fish off the hook.
Final question before I let you go. What would be one thing as a misconception about you or people find surprising once they really get to know you? Like if for the people you let in.
On the show or just like in real life?
In life.
I mean, I think in real life, people don't have a like preconceived notion of who you are until you meet them. On the show, if you looked at like the whole season, I look like this okie dokie like neighbor next door, and that's mainly because most of all the conversations I'm having with Katie, like they don't require humor. Like they're actually deep, serious conversations.
It's not a comedy.
Right. No, we are not doing a comedy here. And so those are all like very real moments. But, I find the humor in everything. I've got a really dark sense of humor. I think people are like, he's, boring or too tight or one thing or that. And that's completely opposite.
So you're not Mr. Rogers.
I'm not Mr. Rogers. No.
I mean, you do have some sort of band.
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers wouldn't have that.
People had.
Where's that? Where's that from?
I get a lot of questions about like the tattoo. It's my only one actually, and this is like a universal sign of like grief and loss.
Oh.
So if you ever see people that do have bands, like typically on the upper part of their forearm, it is that they've lost somebody significant.
You got that after you lost Laura. Oh,
So
wow.
here's the thing. I got this in December of 2018. I'm driving from Akron to Delray Beach because we were getting some investigational treatment down there. And prior to doing that, Laura and I had a conversation about getting a tattoo. And forever, Laura's like, and I actually like tattoos a lot, but you have to pick the right one. It has to mean something. You don't just get it. And she was like, tattoos are for white trash. And I'm like, relax. Like, they're great. And so towards the end, she was actually wanting to get one. And so we were actually going to get one together. And so when I was driving down to Akron, I stopped in like West Palm and actually got this done. And I knew I was going to do that. She was going to get like 3 strands of rope that were like tied in a knot, something like that. And unfortunately, she wasn't able to get that. But I'm so happy that I did this because it means so much and it facilitates a conversation that often continues to bring her up.
That's great.
Yeah. How about yours?
They're all members of my family, except for a few other ones that have other personal significance.
Yeah, I like
and
it.
This is my dog.
I like the black ink. Like, I would never do color ink, I don't think.
Yeah, I can't say that I'll never do it, but I like the black.
Yeah, for sure. There's part of me that's thinking now that I have this that I'd probably concentrate everything on one arm because I do love it. And, this is like the beginning of a chapter and then everything else is like built upward.
Yeah. We could get Michael tatted up. And
Yeah. A little teardrop.
Zaddy.
Get daddy a teardrop.
Now, when you start referring to yourself as daddy,
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a problem.
I mean, I'm not. Who are we? It's not for us to decide.
No, let's just throw it out in the world,
Michael,
and let them eat it.
Michael, it's been a real pleasure.
Thanks, my man.
I'm sure we could talk a lot more, but for the sake of time, we're gonna let you go. Thanks again.
This has been a blast.
I hope whatever you decide to do with your life, I hope it's a great success, and I think it will be. And if we don't have the pleasure of seeing you again on our TV, on behalf of Bachelor Nation, thank you for being such a nice change of pace and offering some nice perspective, and thank you for the happy and sad tears.
Yeah,
they were quite nice, and maybe it won't be the last time. Give it some more thought if it's still an option. And it's interesting because hearing you talk about being the Bachelor. Everyone goes on to be on TV, and I have no problem with that. And, for different reasons, you obviously are taking an incredibly pragmatic approach, and it seems like the TV element, well, I'm sure would be exciting for you as well, would be not as a big of priority, and which would be a real fun thing to watch.
Yeah.
Someone who, even more reluctantly than most people,
catch all of its awkward glory
would be the Bachelor. But whatever you decide for yourself,
thanks, man.
it will be for the right reasons.
That's right.
It'll have, but whatever. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, guys, for listening. Sure. Don't forget to send in your questions at asknick@castme.com, cast with a K, for Ask Nick episodes. And if nothing else, we will see you back on Monday. Hey guys, thanks for watching, but before you go, make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss any future videos like our Mondays Ask Nick for your favorite relationship stories and advice, and our Tuesday Bachelor recaps. See you next time.